This morning, we're very happy to welcome Jennifer Thompson. Jennifer is a performer. She's a singer. I don't know, somehow that's not in the bio here, but it'll become obvious as I read on. She performs frequently in the Chicago area. She's a member of the Vox 3 Collective and performed the role of the mask vendor in the Chicago premiere of Nielsen's Masquerade. She has also sung with the Savoirs, if I'm pronouncing that right, Da Cornetto Opera, and the Hyde Park Gilbert and Sullivan Company. Operatic roles include Dorabella in Così fan tutte, Lady Jane in Patience, Nicolette in Eyes and No Eyes, Duchess in The Gondoliers, Cybele in Faust, Lady Sangazur in The Sorcerer, and Mrs. Gleaton in Susanna. She has many solo Horatio credits as well, and she currently teaches private lessons in her home at Old Irving Park, as well as in the Christopher Laughlin School of Music in Northbrook. Jennifer holds a Master of Music degree from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and a Bachelor of Arts from Mid-America Nazarene University. And she will talk to us today about the myth of the vocal talent. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. So the topic of my presentation this morning is the myth of vocal talent and why I believe every singer should receive formal vocal training. Let's start with a definition of the word talent. All right, a couple definitions are natural aptitude or skill. Also, a special, often athletic, creative, or artistic aptitude. Now, of course, there are people who find singing easy. It's obvious to all of us, right? When these people open their mouths, pleasant sounds come out without much effort, and we say that those people have talent. However, problems appear when we celebrate this natural ability, but we do not celebrate hard work and discipline. This leads us to the belief that singing is something that a person either can or cannot do. Singing talent shows such as American Idol perpetuate the idea that there are only some people who can sing and the rest cannot. People love to watch the bad auditions and laugh at the people holding the delusional belief that they can sing when they obviously cannot, right? But is that really true? Who are the judges on the show? Are they qualified to assess vocal ability? No, they are not. They are people who only have an ear and an eye for what they can immediately market and sell. Right now I'm going to show you a YouTube clip of the worst American Idol audition in history. And this is an older video, but I found this and I think it perfectly makes my point for me. Notice at the beginning, Paula asks the singer, "Can you sing?" And he says yes. And then also listen for what Randy says at the end. So we'll go ahead and play that.
Are you excited to be here?
All right. So I suppose we all think that that sounded pretty terrible. I even heard some chuckles out here. However, as a voice teacher, clips like this make me very angry. And the reason for that is singing is a skill which is developed through study and practice. And every person can be taught to sing. I currently have a student who could not match pitch when she started taking lessons. After a period of 9 months training with me, she is able to consistently match pitch. Now in our lessons, we're able to work on developing her vocal quality and expanding her range. I am so grateful that someone recommended that she take lessons rather than telling her that she just can't sing. The belief that says either you have it or you don't is unique to the vocal instrument. Imagine a scene where a child picks up a clarinet for the first time, squeaks out a few notes, and a parent or teacher says, "That sounds good. You don't need to take lessons. Just keep making that exact sound and you'll be successful." That situation would never, ever happen. Now, I know that there are a few successful musicians out there who claim to be self-taught. But those are the slimmest minority and should not be pointed to as an example of what is possible. I will come back to that point in a few minutes. Let's explore the voice now. I'm going to show you what it looks like and how it works. So this is a diagram of the larynx, or the voice box, as it's commonly known as. This is a view of the front. So if you place your hand on your throat, you can actually feel your thyroid cartilage. It's a little bit more pronounced in men. That's where the Adam's apple is. And just behind that are your vocal folds. I'm going to show you the back view as well. Ooh, kind of looks like a monster, but it's very cool. Up above, you see the epiglottis, and that closes over the vocal folds when you're eating or drinking to prevent any food debris from going in, from touching the vocal folds. I also have a fun model that I'm going to pass around, so you can all take a look at a 3D representation of the larynx. Ta-da! All right, we'll pass that around. Okay. Now, for the vocal folds themselves, they are two muscles. They're connected to arytenoid cartilages and that thyroid cartilage at the front. I want to point out the open space for respiration, that's breathing in, breathing out, and then a closed position for phonation. And phonation refers to either singing or speaking or any noise that creates pitch. And now let's see this bad boy in action. So now we're going to look at 2 videos of healthy trained singers, both of them classically trained, so a male and a female. This is going to be awesome. Awesome, right? So the way that they do that is your ENT, your nose and throat doctor, has a scope that they can insert either through the mouth to the back of the throat, or actually through the nose, through the sinus cavity, and down to the pharynx, and has a little camera attached at the end, so then they can view your vocal folds and make a video, take pictures to see if there are any vocal problems, or just to make sure that they're functioning properly. So now that you have an idea of how the voice works, let's talk about why vocal training is important. There are many reasons why it is important to take lessons. Some of the reasons are that the vocal folds are quite small, very delicate, and highly specialized. If you have any change in your purse or in your pockets, see if you can find a penny and pull out a penny. The diameter of a penny is approximately the diameter of the vocal folds. And the thickness of this penny is also approximately the thickness of your vocal folds. So small, and they do so much. Additionally, the vocal folds are involuntary. They are muscles, but they are involuntary muscles, which means that you do not have direct control over these muscles. which makes vocal training very important because it's not like going to the gym and you can see your bicep, you know exactly, if you're looking in the mirror, you can check your form, you know that you're doing it right or incorrectly. It's not the same with training the voice. You can't consciously tell yourself, all right, I'm going to slightly contract my intra-arytenoid muscles just a little bit more. That's not possible. So it's very important to actually work with a teacher because they know how to accomplish certain sound qualities. And they know how to do that in a roundabout way because, again, you cannot directly control those muscles in any way. Also, there are no nerve endings in the vocal folds. So this is a great thing, but it can also be kind of a scary thing as well. Because if your vocal muscles had nerve endings, you would feel like you were choking all of the time when you were speaking or singing. But also, on the other side of that, if you are abusing your voice in any way, you won't know until it's too late because you do not have the ability to feel pain in your vocal folds. Let's see. Oh, as I mentioned before, there are some successful musicians that are self-taught. While there may be no negative consequences for the guitarist who taught himself to play and is now successfully touring with a band, the same cannot be said for the vocalist who pursues a career relying only on their natural ability. Even though an untrained singer may achieve great success, there are sometimes severe consequences because of their lack of vocal training. Vocal strain and abuse is unfortunately common in the voices of popular music singers and often leads to vocal surgery to repair vocal damage. Vocal nodules, polyps, and bleeding occur when the vocal folds are subjected to repeated stress and strain due to poor singing technique. A current example of this is the singer Adele. I love Adele. Don't get me wrong. I love her. I listen to her. She is extremely successful. She has never had any vocal training, and she paid the price for this in 2011 when she had to have surgery to stop a vocal hemorrhage. Her vocal folds were literally bleeding because of the way she sings. Here is a photo of a mild vocal hemorrhage. And that one is very mild. If you Google vocal fold hemorrhage, there are some horrible pictures that will pop up. This is like a very tame one, actually. And you can actually see on one side that there is a nodule right there, which probably led to the hemorrhage. All right, now that I've scared you all into taking voice lessons, let's discuss some other reasons for vocal training that are a bit more on the positive side. All right, other reasons to take lessons: love of singing. If you love it, you probably want to improve your ability no matter where you're starting from, whether you feel like you already sing fairly well, or you are an absolute beginner, don't think you have any aptitude for it at all, but you just really want to be able to sing that song at karaoke, maybe. Also, how you sound to yourself is not how you sound to the rest of the world. You'll know that this is true if you've heard your speaking voice on recording or even your singing voice. I'm accustomed to hearing my singing voice on recording now, but I still think I sound so weird on recording when I'm speaking. So it's important to take lessons because it's not possible for you to accurately hear yourself as you're singing. So you have to have an outside pair of ears hearing something that you are not able to hear. Additionally, a voice teacher has solutions to all of your vocal problems, problems that you may not even be aware of. And they have exercises and ways to address those and solve them to make you the best singer that you can possibly be. Now we're very briefly going to go back to that American Idol video that we watched at the beginning. We're going to watch just a bit of it. We'll start at the same time frame, if we can, about 35 to 40 seconds in. And this, yeah. Oh, sorry. This time.
Yes.
Sorry. And this time, I'm going to give you my assessment of this singer as if he were my student and I were his voice teacher. Okay. Could definitely benefit from some ear training. These exercises are a bit tedious, but they are necessary in order to consistently match pitch correctly. The other obvious issue to me is his tongue position, and the video is fuzzy. You probably can't really see the position of his mouth and his tongue, but just by listening to it, I can tell you for sure his tongue is pulled way back in the back of his mouth, and that tongue position is distorting the tone quality a great deal. Allow me to demonstrate. So if I sing the same line and my tongue is way in the back of my mouth, but my people go. Ugh, that sounds terrible. Okay, now let me sing it with a correct tongue position, relaxed and forward in the mouth. Let my people go. Worlds of difference, right? So, from both my personal experience and my experience as a teacher, I can firmly tell you that natural talent is not necessarily an indicator of future success. Personally, I had some natural experience when I was young, but nothing that made me stand out above the pack. In fact, I went to a small college in Kansas, and I was not the most talented singer in the vocal performance program. Usually people that are very talented go to small schools because they'll be a big fish in a small pond. I was a small fish in a small pond. But when I auditioned for the music program, I was lucky enough that the teachers there were excellent, and they heard my potential, not what I had at that very moment. Voice teachers are trained to hear the potential in a voice, not just what it is at that very moment. In fact, one of the most important moments in my development as a singer was after a vocal competition at the end of my freshman year. I went completely unnoticed by all of the judges, while two other girls in my class won placement in the competition. I think one received first place, and I think the other one maybe got third place, something like that. At my next voice lesson, I went in and I started crying, and I asked my voice teacher why they won the competition, but I didn't. I felt it was completely unfair and unjust because I practiced all the time, and I never saw them or heard them in the practice rooms ever. So she looked at me and she said, "Jennifer, just wait. Your hard work will pay off and you will surpass them." And I did. So what I'd like to leave you with is that, again, I'll say it again, natural talent is not necessarily an indicator of future success. Are those girls still singing at all or have any career in music whatsoever? No, they don't. And so I'm hoping that we can start to change our idea of what talent is. And instead of celebrating the person that just flies by only on their pure natural talent, we give more celebration to the person that takes lessons, works hard, and develops their voice. And if you love to sing but don't think you have talent, take voice lessons. If you love to sing and you do have talent, take voice lessons. And I have one last point to make. It's never too late. I've had many, many, many adult students throughout my time teaching, and I started teaching lessons when I was in college. My senior year of college, I took on a few students. So I've been teaching for a long time. So it's never too late. I've had students in their 70s that have come to me and said that this is something that they've always wanted to try, and now is the time. So I will leave you with that, and we can open it up to questions.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I have to say, I imagine that, if I wanted to take up piano playing, absolutely I could learn it, but it never occurred to me that something like singing was as much a product of learning as so anyway, I did learn something new today. Thank you.
So you call it, or it's called vocal folds, and I guess we all hear it as vocal cords. How did that go from one to another? Just common usage? And my second question is, what causes hoarseness or the inability to speak or sing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great questions. So vocal cords, vocal folds, those terms are really interchangeable. Voice teachers and the medical profession prefer the term vocal folds because it's a bit more accurate because the vocal folds are made up of several layers. There's a muscle layer, and then there's something called squamous epithelium layer, and then a mucosal layer. So they're very complex, and the word vocal cord, that term implies a bit more of a simplistic anatomy and physiology. So teachers and medical professionals do prefer the term vocal fold, but saying vocal cord is no way incorrect. It's just a little bit more like popular vernacular. And for your second question, hoarseness, that is usually caused by inflammation of the vocal folds. So there's some kind of irritation that may be from multiple different reasons. It could be from postnasal drip, mucus draining down the back of your throat, your nasopharynx, onto the vocal folds, causing irritation. That can cause hoarseness. Dehydration can cause hoarseness. Additionally, if the way that you're speaking or singing causes any irritation to the vocal folds. So if you're a teacher and you speak a lot, and especially if you speak mostly at a monotone level, that will make your voice really tired really quickly, because the vibration is happening at exactly the same frequency for a long period of time without any variance. That tends to tire the voice really quickly and irritate it. Also, if you scream like at a sports event or anything, screaming is not good for your voice. So any of those things can cause vocal fold irritation, and that can lead to hoarseness.
Early screaming is not good for your voice. Anyway. So I have kind of one little story and a short question. The story is I was 12 years old. I got a job as a waiter in a camp. They had a play going on, and I sounded like that guy up there. And this doctor, he was an ENT, said, "Nobody is tone deaf." He gave up with me. So maybe you might have a student next year. We'll see. a double-blind study. The second thing is last night we had the pleasure of having dinner with you last night, and you told us something that nobody at that table knew, if you remember about opera singers. Do you remember?
Oh,
Okay, so the question is, when you answer, you reveal that to this group, how do you train to do that? Am I making sense?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so what he's referring to is the fact that opera singers have never, and still to this day do not ever use microphone amplifications. Opera houses generally do not even have sound systems. There are no microphones. If there are microphones, they're used for recording purposes, to archive those performances, and they're not used for amplification. So operatic singing technique, which is how I was trained, is a very specific vocal technique in which you utilize both the breath and your body's natural resonance in order to amplify your voice so that you will be able to be heard in the back row over the orchestra in a fairly large concert hall. And so that is accomplished through a great deal of training, years and years of lessons, and you both work up your vocal stamina because generally opera singers have to sing throughout the entire opera. Typical operatic performance is about 3.5 hours, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a lot more if you're a Wagner, if you're sitting in a Wagner opera, and it's it's quite a long time to sing. And if you're the leading soprano, leading tenor, you're singing for pretty much that entire time. And so not only does that vocal training involve building up the vocal muscle, working on developing stamina, and as well as developing the proper resonance, mouth shape, the proper breath support, how to breathe. Most of us actually breathe in a way that is not optimal for singing. Most of us have some pretty bad breathing habits, and usually those come from a variety of things. These days, it's mostly like we're sitting at our computer, kind of hunched over, and we end up breathing shallowly like this. Our shoulders move up and down. So in all singing lessons, I think breathing is something that is addressed. But for opera singers especially, the way that you breathe is very, very vital to that technique. So this is just the first couple lines from Charlotte's aria, and all right, I'm gonna step back because this is gonna. All right, so that's the first.
At the other end of the scale from tone deaf, you have perfect pitch. Is that something also that's not native but can be acquired?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So strangely enough, perfect pitch is something that is usually innate, something that you have. You can develop relative pitch, for sure. Developing perfect pitch, I believe that it is possible, but it does take a great deal of ear training work. Everyone can develop what's known as relative pitch. So if you sing enough, if you listen enough, and if you sing a note and you can get very, very close, very, very, very close. To the frequency. So yes, it is something that can be developed. I'm not willing to say that everyone has the ability to achieve perfect pitch. But it is something that you can get very, very, very close to.
So I have a question about the neuroscience of all this. You said that there's no pain receptors in the vocal folds. So my questions go along with that. What is the sensory feedback you get from your vocal folds? Because it seems to me that you'd need to get sensory feedback in order to be able to do the kinds of things we do with our voices. And the other question is when you use your voice in a way that's not healthy, it does hurt. So where are you feeling that pain, and what is it caused by?
Yeah, good questions. So like I said before, the vocal folds themselves have no nerve endings whatsoever. If you are feeling pain of any kind, that is coming from nerve endings from the surrounding tissues. Probably from the pharynx, which is the tissue lining the back of your throat, or possibly down lower in your trachea, but yeah, the vocal folds themselves have no nerve endings whatsoever. And if you are feeling discomfort or pain, those signals are coming from surrounding tissues, not from the folds themselves. So the vibration that you feel radiates throughout your entire neck. So the vibration, those sensations that you are feeling, those are from the surrounding muscles, the surrounding skin, the surrounding tissues, other muscles that are absorbing those sound waves, and feeling that sympathetic vibration coming off of the vocal folds. Yes.
So my question is about vocal range. I'm wondering if you can speak about that a little bit. I've always thought of myself as an alto because that's where I'm comfortable.
Right.
But I'd love to be able to sing higher notes. Are we born this way, or can we expand our range?
Yeah, definitely. That is a great question, and that is one of the first conversations that I usually have with students that are coming to see me for the first time. Range is a funny thing because we normally feel, especially women, we normally feel that we are most comfortable singing low at first, or just naturally, like what we feel our natural ranges will usually be low. And the reason for that is where our speaking voice lies. Our speaking voice lies at the usually like the lowest part of the chest voice. And there are two different ranges to the voice. There's chest voice and there's head voice. In men, we call it chest voice and falsetto. And in women, it feels the most comfortable usually to sing in chest voice in that lowest part of your range, because that's where your speaking voice is. And I tell all of my students, it's sort of like if you're either right-handed or left-handed, and your speaking voice you use every single day, all day long. So that part of your range is very well developed and very well exercised. So if you are right-handed and you never use your left hand for anything, and then one day you try to sign your name with your left hand, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be very difficult. It's going to look terrible. And the same is true for your singing voice. Most of us have no reason to use the higher range of our singing voice, but actually the upper range has the most potential for development. So I usually find that beginning singers, or just singers that have not had any formal voice lessons, I usually find that their range is about 1 octave usually. And sometimes there's more and sometimes there's less than that. It really depends on the person. But usually approximately an octave range, which is actually very small. So that would be like from like an A below middle C to the next A. That's 1 octave. However, with training, every singer should be able to have double that 2 octave range at least. And operatic singers usually have about 3 octaves for their singing voice. So yes, range is something that absolutely can be developed and expanded, and I believe it should, because that's actually where the most potential of your voice lies. The training for that at first involves just using it on a regular basis, just exploring it, and the more you do it, the more comfortable it becomes, and then it starts to open up, and then a strength begins to come, and then we work on the tone quality. So yeah, absolutely.
Would taking voice lessons alter someone's natural charm? For example, would Woody Guthrie still sound like Woody Guthrie if he took voice lessons as a kid, or Bob Dylan? I'm assuming neither one did.
In vocal training, we never encourage a raspy tone quality. Raspiness generally points to a vocal issue. Like there's some, probably vocal nodules are present on the vocal cords. So we generally don't want to sing in a way that keeps those vocal nodules there. We want to sing in a way that eliminates them, because that is healthier for the voice. Now, if you're building a career on a very raw, very raspy quality of sound, and that's what you really want, and that's what your fans want, then I suppose you probably shouldn't take lessons, because yeah, I would get rid of that.
You mentioned that you have quite a few things going on with performing, teaching, private lessons, and so on.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk a little bit about how you build a career, especially for something which I'm guessing is fairly niche, like opera singing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is nearly impossible to make a financial living as an opera singer, unfortunately, and this is something that they generally don't tell you when you enter a vocal performance program in college. However, I have no regrets whatsoever. I'm very happy. I don't feel like there's anything else that I would have chosen to major in college, and I went on to do a master's degree in vocal performance, and so even though I only get financial living from teaching voice lessons, I still perform. I still sing. Occasionally. I don't do it as regularly as I used to, because at some point, I think every operatic singer reaches this point where they realize, I'm never gonna sing at La Scala in Milan. Okay. Let's sing on my own terms and sing what I want to sing when I want to sing, and stop chasing that elusive career that you've made it, because the career of an opera singer is actually incredibly difficult. Those that perform regularly, my favorite is Olga Borodina. She's Russian. She's amazing. So in order to reach that level of success, you have to have an agent. You have to have the next job lined up while you're currently singing your present role at whatever opera house it is. There's no such thing as a full-time job in the opera world unless you are a member of the Chicago Lyric Opera Chorus or the Met Opera Chorus. Those, and I believe a couple other ones, San Francisco, and a couple other, I believe Kansas City Lyric Opera is a full-time job. A few of those in the major cities in the U.S., chorus jobs can be full-time jobs. Other than that, if you are really pursuing a solo career, it is incredibly difficult. You have to be learning your next role while you're performing your current role, and the run of an operatic performance, any show, generally lasts maybe 2 months. So if you don't have your next show lined up with a different opera company, a different opera house, and that could be anywhere in the world, you are literally unemployed for the next however many months until you get your next contract. So it's an incredibly difficult lifestyle. It's very stressful, and most of us at some point realize, you know what, I actually don't think that's what I want. So yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with having a career as a performer.
When I was in high school, I did some choral singing, and I was a second soprano. Mm-hmm. Now, it's been many years since high school, but I have continued to do some singing in the summer on a chorus. And I found second soprano was no longer comfortable, so I moved on to an alto.
Yeah.
And for a number of years, I sang alto. And that started getting uncomfortable. I'm now singing a tenor. Now, my question to you is, am I on my way to a baritone?
Yeah, so those designations are choral designations, and they refer to where the tessitura is. The tessitura refers to where the majority of the notes or the pitches lie within however many parts your harmony has in the choral pieces you perform. The voice changes throughout your entire life. When I was young, when I was in junior high and high school, I could sing higher than anybody else at my school. And then my freshman year in college, my voice started to change. It started to get heavier. It started to get darker in quality. So what I mean by that is the timbre. So when I was in high school, I sang first soprano in my choir, and the high notes were very, very easy for me. I could float them. They were light and effortless, and then when I got to college, those high pitches started to become a little bit more difficult because they had a little bit more depth behind them, a little bit more weight. So it wasn't as floaty as it was when I was in high school. So the voice changes throughout your entire life. So now I'm a mezzo soprano. So that's for women. There's soprano, and there are many operatic sub-distinctions of soprano. I'm mezzo, and then there's also contralto, and that's like the deepest, darkest, richest woman voice type. And so for you, you might try some exercises just working on trying to get back a bit of that upper range. It's something that you can definitely regain for sure. But wherever you feel the most comfortable is the part in choir that you should be singing.
Hi, Jennifer. I have two completely unrelated questions. The first one is, can you learn to train your speaking voice to be something different? I'd love to have Alan Kimmel's voice, but I don't think it's happening. And the second thing is, if you were going to try to train somebody or expose somebody to opera, is there like a path or a series that would start a newcomer on to get them going?
Good question. So I've had a couple students that have come to me for singing lessons, but their purpose was actually not to necessarily sing. It was more to achieve more inflection and strength in their speaking voice. Just as you can hear with my speaking voice, I have a bit more range of inflection than the average person. That actually helps to keep the speaking voice a bit more healthy. If you want to generally avoid what's known as vocal fry in your speaking voice. Vocal fry is like when you're talking way down here and you hear that kind of like crackliness and it sounds terrible, I think. So I think it sounds terrible. So you want to avoid that in your speaking voice. If you can add in a bit more of a range of inflection, just going slightly a little bit higher and then a little bit lower, and just kind of like just a little bit more waves to your speaking voice, you'll find that you'll be able to speak for longer periods of time without feeling very fatigued vocally. What was your second question? Oh, yeah, sure. So if someone was going to their first operatic performance, I would recommend something a little bit on the lighter side, probably. The first one I would suggest is probably something Gilbert and Sullivan. I love Gilbert and Sullivan. It's in English. They're hilarious. They're really weird. They use tons of puns, and they're not super long. Most of those shows last about 2.5 hours, whereas the average opera is about 3 or 3.5. So those are a little bit lighter. They're in our native tongue. So I feel like a lot of the sometimes what keeps people from going to opera is a language barrier. Because they're like, I'm not going to understand what they're saying. I'm going to have no idea what's going on. Opera has tried to address that in recent years. Almost every opera house has super titles projected above the stage. So you see every single line projected in English. So you can very easily follow the storyline and know what's happening. Another good composer, I would say, is Mozart. Mozart operas are really great for the beginner. Those are all of his are in Italian. One German, I think. Anyway, yes, Die Zauberflöte in German. That's the one. So that would be a great one for a beginner. Die Zauberflöte, the magic flute, would be an excellent opera for a first-time goer. My husband and I went to go see Die Zauberflöte at the Lyric this past season, and it was fantastic. They did an amazing, very whimsical modern interpretation of it visually, but musically it was, exactly the same.
I have a question. I'll, as I'm heading over to the next questioner. Tell us about the group that you're a part of, Vox 3. What is your repertoire? Where do you perform? Do you have a website?
Yes, we do have a website. I believe it's just vox3.org. And I've been a member of that group since 2007, I believe. 10 years I've been a member of that group. I think maybe 2008. They try to break the mold of the musical scene in Chicago. There are lots of opera companies that perform standard operatic literature. And what Vox 3 tries to do is they try to find the most obscure thing that they possibly can and perform all of that. So the opera that was premiered in Chicago, Carl Nielsen's Masquerade, was never, ever done in Chicago. Only done, I believe, once ever in the U.S. And the reason for that is because it was in Dutch, and no one really knows that language. We had a language coach to assist us. And additionally, it's like the most performed opera in the Netherlands. We had to order all of our music scores from Copenhagen. And so they try to find very, very obscure, very interesting things that nobody else is doing. They do cabaret performances, which are very, very fun, a little irreverent sometimes, not at all serious. And the cabaret performances combine jazz, pop, opera, musical theater, and they all just kind of mush it together on a theme. They also like to do themed art song recitals. So we have great relationships with the Dankhaus, the German community center in Lincoln Square. Frequently, Vox performs in that space. We're trying to build an alliance with the Alliance to put on a French program there, which I will definitely try to be on that program if that pans out in the near future. Because I've studied French at the Alliance, so they just try to do what no one else is doing. They try to be very unique.
Jennifer, thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering if you had two people who are of equal basic ability, and one wants to be an opera singer and the other wants to do more popular singing, jazz, perhaps, or maybe musical theater or whatever.
Yeah.
How differently would you train them? What, particularly the second one, because I know a lot about the first one.
Yeah. I mean, from a very basic training perspective, like the basic vocal exercises that I use are the same for all of my students, almost. Depending on like the vocal challenges, those may alter depending on what we're specifically working on developing and or fixing if there's a vocal issue. As far as training an opera singer, that technique is very, very specialized. So the things that we would work on are very specific to the operatic literature. As far as any other style, good singing is good singing, and you can always slightly adjust for whatever genre you're performing. But if you have a basic foundation of good technique, you can sing anything. I mean, I go and sing karaoke sometimes, and I kind of kill it. So, so if you have that foundation of a really good, solid vocal technique, then you really can sing anything that you want.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. It's probably been 30 years now. It happened to be on New Year's Eve where a singer named Ricky Nelson was killed in a plane crash. And he was a very popular pop singer in the 50s and 60s, and by this time I'm sure he was more nostalgia. But because it was New Year's Eve, they had his whole previous year's experience, and they said that he had done 300 one-night stands in that year. And I'm wondering, is that really excessive for a singer? And would that, if you kept that up for a long time, would that cause some serious problems in your voice? Or the fact that he was a pop singer would be less of an issue, or what?
Okay, yeah, so touring very, very heavily, yeah. Touring definitely takes its toll. I find that airplane travel is very dehydrating for the voice. So you have to make sure that you're drinking lots of water. Most singers carry like a little saline nasal spray, and are doing that throughout the entire flight. Because if the mucous membranes within your nasal passages and your pharynx at the back of your throat, if those dry out and crack, you are wide open for everyone's germs in the entire plane. So, I mean, this is a good idea for everybody to do, hydrate and keep that moist. I carry some plain chapstick with me, and I shove it up my nose, which is kind of gross, but it helps. So yeah, like touring absolutely takes its toll on your body physically, leaves you open to illness easily. And so, yeah, if you have a very rigorous performing schedule, it's even more important that you have a good, solid vocal technique foundation, because if you have that, you'll be able to sing through any challenges. Operatic performers that are ill can still perform, even though if they have a cold, they can still sing through it and they still sound great because they have a good, solid technique underneath them. So yeah, if you have a very rigorous performing schedule and travel schedule and going from town to town to town to town to town, you'll probably have to do quite a bit of vocal rest in between performances. Yeah.
For someone who might not be able to take lessons, are there one or two foundational exercises that you might recommend to make someone a better singer?
Yeah, I love lip trilling. And if you do that, and you can do that anywhere, anytime, and that will let you. It does so many things. The lip trill is magical. So the lip trill it helps keep your breath steady, which is vital for singing. It helps to focus your voice at the front. So a lot of times teachers speak about singing into the mask area, singing up here into your head. So it's like very focused, and you get a lot of resonance there. The lip trill just kind of boop. For most people, it just automatically sticks it in that place. Like if you do it, I mean, you'll feel the vibration from your lips buzzing, but you should also feel like the pitch vibrating like into your cheekbones. So that's good. It also helps to easily reach slightly higher pitches that you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable reaching on like an open vowel, or regular words. So I love that, and that's something that you can practice anytime, anywhere, and you don't need like accompaniment or a piano. You can just like do some little slides with it, or just sustain one note here or there. See how long you can hold it, and then sing. Change the note. Do it a little bit higher. So and then do some slides with it. Like try to go a little bit higher than you normally do. Go a little bit lower than you normally do. That's an awesome exercise. I use that every single day with all my students. It might take some practicing to be able to get the lip buzz. It's more difficult for some people than it is for others. Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like you speak foreign languages and play at least one musical instrument. Is that correct? What do you play, and what languages do you know?
I play piano. I'm not great at piano. I'm not an excellent pianist, but piano is absolutely necessary as a singer for me, because I need to be able to play for my students as well. So. And just to be able to learn your music as a singer, it's some singers learn things by ear, but if you can play piano, that's invaluable in order to be able to learn new music. Actually, Pavarotti could not read music or play an instrument. He was kind of terrible, but he had a coach that taught him every single pitch, every single note, spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours teaching him all of these operatic roles. And he had he did not know how to read music, didn't play any instruments. Somebody had to teach him every single note of his music. Crazy. Anyway, sorry, tangent. So
languages.
So languages. Yeah, I speak a bit of French. I never actually studied Italian, but I did study Italian diction. So in operatic training, throughout your degree program, you take both languages, and they focus a great deal on diction courses. So you take a lot of language diction classes, so that you're not required to learn every single language, because we sing in French, German, sometimes Spanish, Russian, Italian. So there's no way that, there are some amazing people that are fairly fluent in all of those languages. I am not one of those, but I have studied French, I've studied Spanish, and German. However, I have extensively studied diction in all of those.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, so much. It's my prerogative to take you off the hook as far as any more performing. I think you've done a wonderful, wonderful job of teaching us about a fascinating topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.